Good afternoon, Bloody Barons. Just a very quick bit of video to show you how to make a Bloody Barons cloth easily and cheaply. Here is a 6x4 cloth from Geek Villain. Very good cloths, highly recommend them. 6x4. If you get the cloth out, there we go. This is a nice one. And fold it in half. There you go. I fold it in half. I'll just prim it round a little bit. Maybe I should get a friend to help me. Superb work. Right, a 6x4 folded in half makes a 4x3. There it is. And that's how you make a mat to play Bloody Barons on. 6x4, 4.5. Bloody Barons doesn't need markings. It's a grid-based game. It doesn't need markings on the table. That's all quite easy. Now here's the next bit. The Bloody Barons cloth, or the table, is 4 units by 4 units. You can make them any size you like, but what we've done is to make them 1 foot by 9 inches. Here's what I've done earlier. I've cut a piece of material. I'll put it upside down so it's very clear. There it is. That's 1 foot by 9 inches. That means there's enough for 4 of these back and forth and 4 of these side to side. If I put some other upside down ones, you'll get the idea. There. You can see the 4 zones left and right. And there's 4 zones in depth. So you see an empty zone here and an empty zone there. That's your 4x4, just so it's really, really clear. Now you can make the zones different sizes, that's fine. You can make different depth, different width, whatever suits you. But that'll fit on a 4 foot by 3 foot, and that's ready to go for a game of Bloody Barons. These pale bits of cloth are only laid out to show how the zones work. You wouldn't really do that in a game, but with a nice green cloth you couldn't see the demarcations if I just put some lines and things on it. Now, a zone can hold 3 units. For movement, the troops can move forwards or sideways. So here's the movement. Everything in this ward, or this zone, moves up. The movement is finished. If you'd rather put them like that, nobody cares because it's in a zone. Next turn they might move again. There they go. There's another turn of movement. A quick word on dice before I forget to say anything about them. We encourage people to have just 1 colour of dice. Now here's the reasoning behind it. First of all, it's very clear which are your dice. Here's some yellow ones and blue ones. Secondly, it stops people who are too mean to buy some nice dice having all their scrappy different colours and different symbols on them, and then looking for their lucky brown one for shooting, the special red one when it's a general save, the pink one they're not so keen on unless it's for reinforcements. It just stops all that nonsense. And as I said, that's just for clarity. It's up to you, but I like people to have some nice dice, all the same colour. These are 16mm piggy dice. The piggy's on a 6. But that's something that Peter Pig invented in 2003. Other people have copied that, but good for them. Now, moving troops. They move 1 zone per turn. But if you want to do anything complicated, like going sideways, you need 11 on 3 dice. I've rolled these 3. Oh, that's 11, so they're okay. They can move sideways. If they're also doing something like coming out some buildings, let's put some buildings out. Let's say, for example, this was a zone with buildings in it. These are the Usborne cut-out buildings, which I think are lovely little models. You can still buy those all over the place. Now, if you want to come out of buildings, you also have the 11. 3 dice. If you fail, they all go out of order. In order is 1 line, out of order is 2 lines, and they've lost their turn. That means it's difficult for infantry to get out of cover, to move sideways, but easy with no cost whatsoever going forwards and backwards. You have to get 11 on 3 dice to move sideways or out of cover. If you've done it once and failed it, next turn you can have 4 dice. If you can't get 11 on 4 dice, things aren't looking good for you. It's quite a short game. Players are only likely to get about 5 turns each. So these unit here couldn't whiz around the table. They're almost committed to that. And that's how movement works. Better units. Sometimes units are regarded as being better. This is how a unit gets better. If they're household troops, they're categorised as better, whether there's 3 bases, 2 bases, or just a single base left. Just being household makes them better. Any unit with 3.5 or more bases, there's 4 bases there, is obviously a fresh unit, so they're better as well. But only if it's got a frontage of 3.5 or 4. The moment they're out of order, they're no longer better. The moment you've only got 3 bases left or less, they're no longer better. So most troops stop being better after the first turn or 2 of the game. Also, if you've won a fight and go win the fight mark, you're better as well. If you're fighting against this ward, there's a better unit because you've got win the fight marker, and they're better because they've got lots of men as well, just makes them better. These are better because they're fresh, they're all there. And these are better because they're household. Later in the game, there might only be 3 bases of the household. Those might reduce to 2, and these might be out of order. Now, if they're still winning the fight marker with them, they're still better. These can never again be better unless they win a fight, because only 2 bases left. These are always better because they're household. Of the 3 types of troops, there's levy, retinue, and household. Household are expensive, but they're your very best troops. They'll be a better unit until the end of the game. Whereas retinue will soon get tired and decrease in numbers. That's the definition of a better unit. Here is how a fight works. In Bloody Barons, all fights are between one zone and another zone. They're not between individual units, it's the whole zone fights the whole zone. And the mechanism is a whole bunch of dice seeking 5 or 6s. Now, you've probably memorised how this works after a game or 2, and that's to make the game go quickly. Here's how it goes. First of all, you get 3 dice if it's a foot ward. So the blue's getting 3 dice, the yellow's getting 3 dice. Cavalry don't get this. Foot wards are tougher than cavalry wards because cavalry only appear now and again, and against a well-formed foot ward, they don't usually win. Now the units. Every unit which has got more than 2 bases in frontage gets 3 dice. So this blue unit claims 3 more dice. Wonderful. This blue unit also claims 3 more dice. On this side, the yellows, they can still have 3 dice because it's still a wide unit. This unit's quite narrow, only 2 base front, only worth 2 dice. And they're only worth 2 dice as well. Now there's some adjustments to be made as well. This zone has got no general present. They've got the Duke of Cheddar there, which is very nice. Having no general doesn't gain a dice, it loses dice. I've lost a yellow dice, there's no general there. Now we compare the better units. These are better because they're household. These are better because they'll win the fight marker. They're better with winning the fight marker. So when I compare them, 2 better, 1 better, they've got more better units. Because they're one better overall, they lose one of their dice there. Now we now compare the dice. The yellows have got 8 dice. The blues have got 9 dice. In a fight, the 5th hit is always on the general. So if there are a few hits, the general's safe. Once you hit 5 or more, he's under risk. Generals in fights save on 3, 4, 5 or 6. However, if you'd like to use an extra dice, he now only saves on a 4, 5, 6. If he wants 2 more dice, he now only saves on a 5 or 6. I'm risking him twice because I think the yellows may not get the 5 hits there. I'd rather have more hits because winning is better than just taking part. Now, let's assume that the blues assaulted the yellows. The disadvantage for the yellows is they have to roll first. They get a re-roll, but they have to go first. I'm going to roll the yellow dice, 5 or 6s. 3's not bad. I'm going to re-roll because I think the blues might easily beat 3. So I'm going to re-roll the yellows. Let's do that again. Oh, that's not so good. Only 2 successes. The advantage is always with the assaulter. He's got to beat 2 to win this fight. Shouldn't be very difficult at all. 1, 2. Well, if it's a draw, the assaulter loses. The assaulter's actually got to win the fight to win. He's going to re-roll. He'd be mad not to. Roll dice again. That's a bit better. The re-roll's there to make the results closer together and to put some decision on the gamers. So they think, oh, I'm not sure how well I'm doing. Give them a decision. The blues have obviously beaten the yellows. Whoever wins get 2 more hits. So, yellows achieved 2, blues have achieved 7. Now, the yellows 2, the blue player decides to put both on that unit. They're retinue, they should save okay. The blue player puts 2 per unit. There we go. Any extras, the yellow player puts wherever he likes. And the yellow player decides to put it there to try and beat them to death. We already know the outcome of the fight. This player's won, the blue player's won it, but we now see who's dead because of the fight. So you could save your men, but still lose the fight. Here we go. 4, 5, 6, the basic save. 4, 5, 6, they've saved both of them. Good. These are household 3, 4, 5 or 6. They've lost a base. So I take a base off, put back half a base, and there's a dead body, hence the blue picture. 4, 5, 6s. They failed twice. I take a whole base off because 2 fails, and I'll put down a couple of dead bodies. They seem to have changed colour. There we go. Now that's their saves done. We know they've lost, but we do the saves on the others, the blue side. 4, 5, 6s. They've saved them both. Now, what would happen next is this. They assaulted, so this lot are going to get punched out. They're going to have to fall back a zone. The whole zone goes backwards. Everyone's out of order. Both sides are out of order. Now, these have obviously won a fight beforehand, but they're awarded a winning the fight marker, which is nice. We already had one anyway. They've done exceptionally well, and the dice weren't fixed. They've just done exceptionally well. Now, these men that lose, they're punched out. The bodies, they do morale at the beginning of their own turn. So not morale now. When their own turn starts, they do morale. And that's how a fight is done. Morale. Morale is done by every zone which has any bodies in it whatsoever. That's the one thing that triggers morale. Dead bodies. That means nothing has to be written down, no record keeping, you just look at dead bodies. Let's say it's this player's turn. It's the yellow player. Here's how morale works. It's just a bunch of dice. It's 1 dice per dead body. Once again, people can memorise this. 1 more dice for a hostile zone. Hostile face. There's a hostile face. Another dice. And these are enemy as well. Another hostile face. No general, another dice to roll. Oh dear me. Now, better units. These are household, so I can take a dice off. It makes morale a little bit better. If they're on a hill, they can take another 2 dice off. But they're in a bit of a pickle there. They're going to roll these dice, and every 4, 5, 6 is bad news. 1 fail, they tend to stop and get disordered. 2 fails, they're seized up even worse. And 3, the men start to run away. Let's see how many 4, 5, 6s we do. There are 5 dice. Oh, that's not so bad. 2. Now, the bodies are gone. Once you do morale, the bodies are gone. That's what created the morale. There it is. Everyone's out of order, and with 2 fails, they cannot leave the zone this turn. Let's roll that again. There's 5 dice again, see what else could happen. Oh, 2 fails again. Let's pretend there were 3 fails. It's their worst day ever, 3 fails. If you get 3 fails, you roll 2d6, and that's number half bases you have to lose. I've rolled a 9. I'm allowed to re-roll. 9's quite high. Let's re-roll. 5. They've got to lose 5 half bases. There's 2 half bases. 3, 4. I choose where I like 5. Those men have gone, so men have started to rout, and they would have to fall back as well. So 3 fails is really bad. Because fails on 4, 5, 6s, that means if you're rolling 6 dice, things are looking grim. To reduce the dice, you need better units, either win the fight, household, or fresh strong units. A general there helps as well. Also helps you haven't got enemy on various faces. That's bad news. And a hill actually takes 2 dice off. So if you sit on a hill, things are looking good. But levy present adds another dice on. It goes up and down. There's only about 7 modifiers in total, so you can whiz through your morale. And that's how morale works. Let's now look at shooting. Shooting's a bunch of dice trying to kill the enemy. Throughout Bloody Barons, it uses mechanisms where you have hits and saves. That means you can have more variation because you've got different types of hit and different types of save. And in combination, you get a lot of variations or permutations. Let's begin. When you shoot the whole zone or the whole ward, whole battle all shoots together. They're not individual units, they shoot together. Every unit usually gets 2d6. As long as it's got a frontage of 3 or more. So they shoot with 6 dice. If the unit's got less than a frontage of 3, let's say they were like that, then they only get 1 dice each. Bad news. Let's go back to the 2 dice each. So basically, a zone can hold 3 units. 3 is the maximum number of units, plus generals, guns, and handguns, all sorts of odds and ends. These would shoot with 2 dice, 2 dice, 2 dice. To create hits, you need 5 or 6s. They're going to shoot at this zone here. So you just say, this zone shooting at that zone. Simple as that. Here are my 6 dice. I'm always allowed to re-roll 5 or 6s. Only 1 success. I'm going to re-roll. I think most players would agree we'd re-roll. That's better. 2 hits. So 2 hits of 5 or 6. The opponent decides where to put them. He's going to put both here. They save on 4, 5, 6s. 2 fails. Take a whole base off and put 2 dead bodies down. The shooting is done. Let's reverse that up and look at it in a different way now. When shooters are at short range, you can do a thing called intense shooting. That means using lots and lots of arrows, but they might get low on arrows. Let's try that. Intense shooting is still 2 dice per unit. Fine. But this time they hit on 4, 5, 6s. So I'm going to announce intense shooting. Here's my 6 dice. I'm expecting about 3 successes. Wow. 4 successes. Well, the opponent decides to put 2 on that unit. 2's the maximum per unit, and 2 there. 4, 5, 6 is to save. Lost a whole base. 2 dead people. Marvellous. And 2d6 on the rear one. Well, not doing very well. Lost another half base. So I put a half base back, and I put a dead person back as well. There. That was good shooting. Now, if I use intense shooting, because I've used a lot of arrows, if I roll a 1, 2, 3, I go low on arrows. Oh dear, I've gone low on arrows. From now on, these men only hit on 6s. There's the difference. So 5 or 6 is normal shooting up to 2 zones distance. 4, 5, 6 for close range, intense shooting. But on 1, 2, 3, you go low on arrows. Low on arrows, you only hit on 6s, which is terrible. And curing low on arrows is only done with a 5 or 6 at the end of a turn. Quite tricky. And that's the end of shooting. The General. In Bloody Barons, each army gets 3 generals, a CNC and 2 lesser generals. And that's quite normal for most Wars of Roses battles. They often split their army into 3 parts. The foreward, the main ward and the rear ward. The foreward would often arrive first, then the main ward, then the rear ward. That's the column of march. Anyway, there are 3 generals. Now the generals can have abilities. There are 4 abilities they could have. They could have an A or a Salter ability. That's one ability they could have. They could have a U or Unreliable ability. Can be useful, but basically it's bad news for people. They could have a T Target ability. Marvellous. Or they could have a Morale ability. There. It's unlikely to have all 4 abilities, but it is possible. Most generals in the game get 1, maybe 2. And that's done by certain dice gambling at the beginning of the game. The morale ability lets you re-roll your morale dice. Very, very useful. Because if 4, 5, 6 are fails and you get 3 fails, men will start routing. So you might want to re-roll that. The attacker or assaulter ability, get 2 more dice if your ward's assaulting. It means he's a real vicious chap who really wants to push his men into fighting. A target, that's 2 more dice if he's actually attacked. It means he's very solid and is good at holding his ground. Unreliable is very specific to the Wars of the Roses. You roll 2 dice, he might make a run for it, he might surprise the enemy, or he might just fight normally. Can be a bit of a pain, but you can get some surprises. Unreliable generals can turn out to be quite good. What else can the general do? Well, I'll put this to one side for the moment. If he joins a unit, he makes them 1 grade better. There are 3 grades of unit. There's levy, which aren't rubbish, but they're just ordinary soldiers. Retinue, experienced soldiers. And household, superb soldiers. If he joins a unit, he makes them 1 better. There's no point joining the household, because they're already better. If he's joined these retinue, he makes them up into household. So now there's 2 household units. His risk increases in fighting and that, but if you want to make your men fight well, you should join them. That's what he did in the actual period. Also, if there's a general there, you don't lose a dice in fighting for no general present. You don't lose a dice on morale for no general present. But with only 3 generals, most armies are occupying 4 wards. You cannot be everywhere. And you want your appropriate general to be in the right place. So if things are tough, you might say, oh, I need a morale general there. But if he's morale and he's an assault general or attack general, that could be really good. But it's on dice at the beginning of the game. The CNC is slightly better than the other 2 generals for various reasons. So general's very, very useful. To move the general around the battlefield, you can obviously go with his men. But to move a zone, he has to roll anything but a 1. If he rolls a dice, oh, he can't move. No generals can move that turn. Let's say he rolled a 6, he can move a zone. He could roll again. Oh, he can't then move. If you want to roll again and again and again, he can move again and again and again. There's only 1 dice available for all 3 generals combined. So the moment you score a 1, that's the end of all the generals' movements. It's not often you want to move generals, but if you want to scurry across to help someone with some bad morale, you need to roll anything but a 1 to move 1 zone, anything but a 1 to move another zone, anything but a 1 to move another zone, etc. And when you finish with 1 general, as long as the dice isn't dead with a 1, you can use it again for the other general and the other general. But if you're whizzing around the table, that'd be a little bit odd if you mean generals are all in the wrong place. If generals get killed, new generals are generated off table and they come on to take their place. But it can cause problems. Also, if a general's killed, sometimes on a dice roll of a 6, the men will fall back off table with him, which can also be a bit upsetting. Anyway, that's the general.